Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of the Yes She Can project. I am super happy today to be joined by the gorgeous Nadia. Hello, Nadia.
Hi, Michelle. Thank you so much for having me today.
Oh, it's an absolute pleasure. I mean, we just had a quick pre-podcast chat, and it's going to be a good one, isn't it?
I think this is definitely going to be one that's going to be pretty healing
Mhm.
for everyone listening as well as us. And I think we're
Mhm.
going to try and keep it as authentic and transparent as we can.
Definitely. So, for anybody who hasn't come across you before, could you do me a little quick introduction and just tell me a little bit about who you are and what you do? And then we'll delve into more a bit later on.
Sure. So I am an osteopath. I have a column in Hello magazine called Wellbeing with Nadia. Some people may have seen me appear on ITVs this morning, as well as BBC radio shows. I enjoy doing panel talks as well as podcasts. So I'm so happy to be here today. I've been treating in the world of osteopathy for over 23 years now, and wellness is my thing. And allowing and teaching people how to look after themselves at their best is my passion.
And you can just tell like that totally comes through in the way that you talk.
Oh, thanks.
Bless you. So you've been hailed, like you have the title of like the secret weapon to total well-being. Could you tell me a little bit about kind of your journey and how you got to this point?
Firstly, I'm really humbled by that. My journey wasn't as straightforward. I do share this quite often. When I graduated, I was super excited to start working in a clinic and treating patients.
Yeah.
And no one would give me a job. I would be told
Oh,
I didn't, yeah, I know. I'd be told I didn't look like an osteopath. I looked too petite. My hands were too fragile looking and dainty. Um, I would be told I should have gone into the world of fashion. So I was really quite disheartened when I went for these interviews. With as time went on, I mean, within weeks, my mum and dad were just like, "Hello, when are you going to get a job?" And I just, what do you say? And back then, do you remember the yellow pages? I'd open the yellow pages and go through all the people to call, and it literally, I would turn up to the interview and they'd kind of look at me and, oh, hmm, yes. So I started to lose my confidence. And I remember once leaving an interview and walking home. And as I was heading home, I thought, do you know what? I'm going to do this on my own. I was 23
ah,
at the time. And with some friends, we designed some leaflets, got them printed at the local printers, and just went leafleting and dropping them to people's homes, just letting them know I'm an osteopath. I rented a room within a lovely gym, and within 6 months, I will never forget this day. Within 6 months, I remember looking into my bank account saying, my God, I'm making my own money.
I
This
did
is my own
it.
business. Yes. And I mean, as a 23-year-old, I still, I was quite overwhelmed. I never saw myself as an entrepreneur. Um, but that's where it began for me. And then in my late 20s, I had this idea of setting up a clinic called Back2Wellbeing. And
Okay.
I started off on a very small front. So within a space I was renting, I had got on a couple of practitioners, a reflexologist, a massage therapist that would work within Back2Wellbeing.
Yeah.
And we'd start off then. And at that point, I came out of a relationship. So I'm going to be completely honest. I'd come out of a relationship which really affected me.
Oh,
Um, and at that point, I was in my late 20s and I just couldn't focus on it. And I decided to dissolve the company.
wow. Yeah, that was really a difficult
It,
decision for you.
it was really hard because it was my dream. So to then say, okay, I'm now going to dissolve it. I felt like a failure. I felt like I just wanted to bury my head in the sand. I just felt
Mhm.
so embarrassed. I was still working within the same place, but on my own, no longer with the team. So I felt disappointed in myself. But then I rerouted. At that point, I said, right, you know what? Let's see what I can do.
Mhm.
At that point, I was in my late 20s, going into my early 30s. I was working on the sets of Downton Abbey. I was doing things within theatre, prepping
Wow.
actors and actresses before they were going onto stage. I then moved to Canada for a year and I worked there. And osteopathy was not common there. It was all about the
Okay.
chiropractors and the physical therapists. within 6 months of working at a space, I was fully booked again. And people were so intrigued as to what is osteopathy. This is amazing. It's healing, it's releasing.
Wow.
So that's where I then, when I came back to London, I was then married and I had two daughters, very young at the time, and COVID happened.
Oh,
And when COVID happened, the place I was working from, they had to shut down because it was a gymnasium. So I rented a space not too far from there. And that's when I had the idea, I am going to resurrect back to well-being.
okay.
And so I did. The concept was there again. I wanted it to be a group of practitioners that were passionate to treat, to help people go into the right direction for their wellness.
Okay.
And I, at the time, my then partner, I said to him, "Would you like to invest?" And he was interested. So he invested in my idea. And off I went. The journey was very important for me from when the patient walks in to when they leave. The practitioners within the space, there's about 14 to 15 practitioners now working within Back to Wellbeing.
Okay.
So it's growing, and I'm hoping to open a second practice soon. So yeah, watch
Wow.
this space.
So in terms of 14 to 15 like practitioners, do they focus on a separate area of health and well-being, would you say?
So some are osteopaths, but
Right,
as osteopaths also, we all have different ways of working.
of course.
There's some that are very structural, some that are more focused on pediatrics. So we're all very, what we look at and our passions are very different. I mean, the ultimate goal is getting their results and, healing.
Of course.
But we also have practitioners like massage therapists, lymphatic drainage and therapists, physiotherapists, reflexologists. We have people that are facialists. So we have a range of practitioners within the space.
Wow, that's incredible. So
Thank
you've touched upon the fact that you have worked with obviously actors and actresses, business leaders. Is there a certain theme that a lot of your clients come to you with? Is there like one major issue, would you say, or like a bond that kind of flows through all of them?
One of the things, and this is one of my, I think, fortes, is how we hold emotions and trauma within our body and
Okay.
allowing this to release. Um, when it comes to trends of what people are coming in with, I feel of late it has been more so postural based. I
Okay.
find a lot of the celebs will come in because they're noticing aches and pains, but also they're noticing their posture on screen might be hunching over. They may notice that their neck is starting to disappear, so they're wanting to work with neck elongation. They're
Okay.
wanting to work with looking more upright because posture a lot of time gives off elegance, it gives off youthfulness, as opposed to being slumped and hunched can age you. So there's a lot of people that are coming in to get realigned and to be taught what they can do from home. Because a lot of
Okay.
people are traveling. They may see me a couple of times a year. It's really, I can see you shuffling there.
I am. I'm very aware of my posture right now.
And I feel a lot of times, people want to know what they can do in between. So
Yes.
I find, there's those are the trends there. When we look at, people that are parents, a lot of the times they're doing lots of looking down at their children. So it's
Yes.
the neck ache or the lower back ache. So I find there's a range, but more so people are noticing their posture because of the Zoom meetings that they're having, the screen meetings. People are working from home. So it's a lot more online. So they're seeing themselves on a screen more than they probably would have prior COVID.
Yes, exactly. And I bet you noticed a massive uptake in the potentially like back issues because everybody was kind of forced to be online, weren't they? So, and
Yes.
I mean, I've been in that situation before where I've been sat at the dining table and one of my girls has said, "Mom, sort your posture out. You look like the Hunchback of Notre Dame." Because I'm literally over the computer like this, and you
It
don't
is
realize.
It's easily done. And I say
Mhm.
this to a lot of people. So if you are working from home, go for a firmer seat.
Yeah.
Don't do it on the sofa. There's a term called bed rotting, where a lot of people are having, they take their laptops into bed. So they will have their laptop by the floor, terrible radiation there, but they will then wake up, pop the laptop in their lap, and before they've even got out to have a cup of tea or get some sunlight, they'll just be sitting there typing away. So it's
No.
really about making sure people are on firmer seats, that their screens are lifted.
Mhm.
So, like for example, right now I'm using a laptop, and I'm on the surface I'm on. I've actually popped a book to go underneath my laptop, so it's
Okay.
at eye level. So it's little tweaks people can do to lift.
Amazing. Well, we had a quick chat, didn't we, before the call? Because the big kind of, I don't know if it's a buzzword, but a lot of people talk about burnout.
Yes.
And when we are in a world that kind of glorifies the hustle, if you like, and glorifies the productivity, and you have to be on it all the time, how can people start to recognize those signs of something like burnout before we hit that wall, would you say?
Michelle, I mean, I'm so glad you brought this up because I feel, especially us as women, and
Hmm.
women founders, women that are running businesses, women that have children, there's almost like, we hold that badge as a badge of honor, like we're
Yes.
martyrs. Like to wake up and say, it's 12 o'clock, I've put out the laundry, I've done the dishes, I've written a blog, I've written an article, I've been to the gym, it's like, oh, I've done so much. And
Mhm.
actually, I feel what's happening is a lot of us are putting too much on our plates. And I think we're doing more than we should be. I
Yeah.
think the biggest thing here is listening to your bodies, listening for the signs. If you're noticing things like irritability, exhaustion, where you can't focus, fatigue, aches and pains. I mean, I
Yeah.
think the earliest signs are when you're feeling a bit overwhelmed. Those are the
Definitely.
first signs I feel that come on. I think as we let those continue, that's when things can just crash. And I mean, we've both been through burnout, haven't we, Michelle? So,
Yes.
I
Yeah.
mean, what was your experience with that? What did you feel?
I think, to be honest with you, I think mine came about simply because I hadn't allowed myself any time to rest. And I think working solidly, like you say, for not necessarily for the badge of honor, but the worry that if I didn't continue, then everything would crumble around me. And I think to get in that situation and continue to put pressure on yourself, being on that hamster wheel, it's only when you are forced to come off it that you look back and think, why didn't I do something about this before? It's almost like you failed if you rest.
So true. And I mean, I say a lot to my patients, listen to the whispers, don't wait for the roar. And I mean, I
Yes.
say this often. And for me, the realization I then went through burnout just under 2 years ago. My first thing was I felt so embarrassed. I thought, I've
Oh,
been trying to tell people what not to do.
yeah.
How did this happen to me? And initially it was, a couple of years ago, my marriage came to an end. My children's father decided actually this we came to an agreement that this isn't working. Taking on living with my children, running a
Yeah.
business, trying to look after a home, trying to look after them, I kind of forgot to look after myself.
Yes.
Because everything else came before me, the business, my patients, my children. And I then started to notice getting out of bed was a struggle.
Mm.
And at the time, I couldn't decide, was it my perimenopause or was it, am I exhausted? A lot of people say, oh, but you're doing so much. And I was
Mhm.
doing so much, but I didn't realize how much. And I felt brain fog. I felt like I had no motivation. I did
Yeah.
not want to do anything. I didn't want to see friends. I mean, I would just focus on work, 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 work,
Yeah.
and children, 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 children. And then I realized I was on empty and I had no more to give. And I
Mhm.
remember I sobbed. I was in bed and I just shed a tear. And I thought,
Oh,
what have I done? Like, how did I get to this point? And when you think about it, I feel like I let myself down and I don't ever want to do that again.
yeah.
Because I feel when we don't give ourselves, um, and when we're depleted, we really can't give from that empty cup. So one of the things I like to say to people is to make, go like for me now, lists are really important. I remember a long time ago seeing women tend to have lots of windows open in their head. When I'd go to bed, I'd be like, what's for dinner tomorrow? I've got to put the washing out. Oh, I need to make sure I've done this for the child's packed lunch. Oh, does she have a plastic bottle to take for her homework? So I had all these little windows open and they were constantly there.
Yes.
And they were just background noise. And I
Mhm.
realized actually, this isn't doing me any good.
No.
So I started to make lists. I would wake up and I'd say, right, I've got to do this. And I would tick it off as the day went on. So when the
Mhm.
day ended, those windows were no longer open.
Yeah.
It's been done. And things I didn't do, I'd move them on to my next day.
Okay.
So I then had a system of how to deal with my life as opposed to being overwhelmed.
Yeah, definitely. And I think with stuff like that, the ability to be able to see the progress as well is really helpful, because I think when you come to the stage when you are burnt out, you're kind of just existing rather than living, because you're just trying to do. It's like you're wading through mud, isn't it? It's not nice at all.
Totally. Totally. And I remember there was a time I met a friend for dinner. I didn't want to. And she
Oh,
said, we've got to meet up. And I was like, no, I've got things to do. And she said, no, I haven't seen you for ages. We're going to go for dinner. And I remember the plate coming down and I just scoffed it away.
yeah.
And she said, she looked at me and I just thought, what am I doing? Why am I in such a rush with everything? And
Yeah.
that's when I realized, right, I need to make a change. I cannot live like this. I
Mhm.
was frustrated. I was irritable. I was not fun to be around. I felt on edge. And that's
Yes.
when it changed for me. It was the realization. And it was that moment. That was my light bulb moment. And then I then took things into my own hands.
I mean, it shows such strength of character, though, doesn't it? That you were able to have that level of self-awareness to realize at that point, actually, something has to change, because it only seems to come when we are at our lowest, in a sense, that we can actually see the wood for the trees.
Totally. And I think what's really funny is if I wouldn't have slowed down with that food, I'd have probably vomited it all out. So I had to slow it down. I had no choice. But that's when I realized everything I was doing was in such a rush. And
Yeah.
maybe, I felt like, I needed to slow it down to reconnect with my breath, to reconnect with what I'm tasting. I
Yes.
was never a person who the food comes and I just scoff it. I mean, we would say grace at the dinner table with my girls.
Mhm.
It would be that moment to stop, to recollect, to look at the food, to be thankful for the food before we ate the food. And,
Yes.
looking at things before even putting it in your mouth, it helps with so much from the salivation. It's like the gut system already starts going. So actually, you're helping your digestive system before you even put the food in your mouth, as opposed to anxious eating where your
Mhm.
adrenaline's going crazy, your cortisol's high, you're eating everything. Things are not going to be digesting in the same way.
Exactly. And then do you think in that particular scenario, Nadia, that it was because you needed to get back to all of those tabs that you had open, that was the reason for the rushing through the food?
I think I had actually formed a really bad habit. I
Okay.
think because I had so much to do every day
Yeah.
that became a thing to do as opposed to my time to nourish, my time to stop, my time to enjoy my friends' company, my
Yeah.
time to even enjoy my own company and nourish. So I think that's when, I realized, okay, I'm going to make those changes. And there's so many things I've done, Michelle, that I just cannot wait
Oh,
to share with you.
that's so amazing. I think that there is an element though, Nadia, I don't know if you agree, but I feel like we are encouraged to put ourselves first, but then there's almost a part of us that feels guilty in a way, isn't there? It's like, oh,
100%.
actually, I've got to put everybody else first, and it's almost like you feel like you're being selfish.
So true. And I think, I think for me that came on more after being a mum. I
Yes.
felt that, I had to tend to my children 24/7. And actually what I realized that my children also wanted a bit of freedom. They wanted
Yeah.
their space. It's their space to grow, their space to connect with each other.
Hmm.
And, it allowed me then to connect back with me. So one of the things I noticed also is when I am having time with my friends, with my family, going to bed, I will do things like keep my phone away from me because that blue light, the stimulating it was doing for me, that led to my burnout. Um, because you see, with the blue light, what it does do actually is it doesn't help with things like your sleep,
No.
right? So when your blue light is activated at night, it's not going to allow you to sleep. If you're going to start the day with blue light, that won't help you. So
No.
what I do now, and one thing I talked about in one of my Hello articles was why I ditched my sunglasses. Because when I went through burnout, um, I looked like an actual wreck. Like, I had like really dark circles under my eyes. I'd lost so much weight. So
Yeah.
my first thing is when I'd go to drop the kids to school, I'd put on these sunglasses. I mean, it would be raining outside with a dark storm and dark clouds. I didn't care. I just didn't want people to see me. So it was my mask,
Yes.
dark
Your
sunglasses.
protection.
So no one could see how bad I looked. So I would go drop them to school, and then I'd get home, I'd go for a walk in the park. And I think, oh, someone's going to bump into me. Let me put my sunglasses on. But what I didn't realize, Michelle, is at that point, I was stopping the sunlight entering my eye. And that was vital. And it's vital for your melatonin because you
Yeah.
start building your melatonin, which is your sleep hormone, in the morning. And it's when you
Interesting.
Yes, and it's when you expose your eyes to sunlight. So actually, I wasn't helping my burnout. I wasn't helping my sleep. And sleep is so important. It's when we regenerate, when our
Yes.
cells renew. So once I learned the science behind it, I thought, forget it. My sunglasses are coming off. I will just go with it. And actually, what it did do is it helped my skin, that morning sunlight.
Mhm.
Sunrise, for example, that light that comes through, it helps build collagen in your skin.
Wow.
It helps to
I'm sitting
decrease.
at the window in the morning.
It's so important. It helps to decrease inflammation. So going outside and just exposing myself to that morning light, vitamin
Yeah.
D, remember for vitamin D, you need exposure to sunlight. So
Mhm.
that would all started to make a difference. I ditched those sunglasses in the morning and I'd get my morning light. I have to use my phone here and there, whether it's WhatsApping, texting, doing a bit of research. I will
Yeah.
use it on and off. But when I do, I'm very minimal with it. If I can go
Okay.
on my laptop instead, I prefer my laptop because again, the blue light that comes off that phone, it really affects your hormones. So
Okay.
that is one of the things I do. Also, the radiation that comes off this phone, so I used to use my phone as my alarm clock. So it'd be by my
Do that.
bedside. Exactly. But I wasn't
Okay.
thinking about while I'm sleeping, I'd be absorbing all of that radiation. And then
Oh
I'd
my
wake
God.
up. And when I was burnt out, and I'd wake up and I'd think, oh my God, I'm still exhausted. So what I
Yeah.
started to do is I moved my phone away closer to the bathroom. I plug it in over there. It was meters away from my bed.
Yeah.
That way, when I'd wake up, honestly, Michelle, game changer, try it tonight. Move
Wow.
your phone away from your bedside, put it further away and that anyone going through burnout, give that a go. Also, plants that emit oxygen. So by my bedside, I've swapped my phone for a peace lily. I had a snake,
Oh,
but my peace lily looks a bit prettier, so I leave it there, and it's emitting more oxygen. And so I'm waking up feeling so much more refreshed and
yeah.
rested.
And to a nice site as well next to
A
your bed.
nice sight, yes. And to wake up and draw my curtains, and if I'm up just at the sunrise,
Hmm.
I just sit there and I watch it, and it's so
Oh,
healing. It just gets your circadian rhythm back in balance, and everything just feels easier.
yeah, definitely. It's interesting you should say that actually, because I went through a stage, I don't know whether it was before burnout or kind of during,
Yeah.
where there was a part of me that couldn't work out why my mood was so low. And I kept going through different things in my day and thinking, oh, well, is it this? Is it that? But it was actually social media. And it was the last thing before I went to bed at night, I would, be scrolling on Instagram, just like casually scrolling, not
Yeah.
really thinking anything of it. And the same thing, before I used to get out of bed in the morning, I would reach for my phone and go on Instagram, and it was making me feel crap. And once I removed that and I started to do some mindfulness, like sitting in the garden just for 5 minutes, like every day, the difference it made to my mood was just
It's a
unbelievable.
game changer, isn't it? I mean, I've
Mhm.
done that. I think so many of us have done that.
Yeah,
Social media becomes a thing where it starts off with being, oh, look where they've gone for dinner.
yeah,
Oh, look at where they're on holiday to why am I not there? Why am I working so hard? Why is everyone else having fun and I'm not? Oh
yeah.
God, they look amazing. How did this lady manage to do 7 workouts in a week when I haven't done one in a month? And
Mhm.
all of a sudden the comparison comes, and that's when you then start the self-doubt, and it can just add it adds that grey cloud over your head. So
Definitely.
I'm very similar to you now. I no longer scroll at the end of the day. I
Mhm.
prefer to read a book. I will, have a candle burning. That releases red lights, so that's another way.
Okay.
Having a candle that, if you just have the visuals of that flame, it really helps
Mhm.
with. I mean, if you ever think of being in a campfire or having, a
Mm.
fire burning, it
It's
just naturally,
cozy.
yes, and you just naturally feel relaxed. You just
Mhm.
feel calm. So it's getting those natural red light in, dropping the blue light.
Yeah.
And I think it's just like what you're saying, being in the garden, being in nature, it makes such a difference, doesn't it?
Yeah. And even just like you said about the food situation, just being present in a moment and kind of tuning into your own senses in a sense of I always ask myself like, okay, what three things can I hear right now? It could be like the rustle of the leaves, or you could hear yourself breathing if you're particularly chesty. it's
Yeah,
it's it's just small things that just bring you straight back
into
into
that
being
moment.
grounded.
Yes. Yes. And I think then was it Jay Shetty had talked about, five things you can see, four things that you could touch,
Yeah,
three, so it's kind of getting in touch with your senses, as you said, and bringing
definitely.
you in that moment. And I agree, it's so important because I think when you are burnt out or when you are stressed, the mind takes over. And on the physical aspect, especially with burnout,
Yeah.
is the joint pain, it's the muscle pain, it's the
Mm.
aches and pains, it's the I can't walk up the stairs. I have
Yeah.
no energy. So, there's so many tools for that. I always say to my patients, start slow. Um, Having a hot bath. I think we
Okay.
talked about that, didn't we? I have a ritual, Michelle.
Okay.
Every night, whether it's winter or whether it's summer, I will take a bath. And my friends can't understand it. They're like, Nadia, it is hot. How are you taking a bath? I don't care. I will take a bath and I do it the same way every night. I'll
Yeah.
fill it up. I'll put some nice lavender oil in there, some Epsom salts in there. I'll have a candle burning and I will open the window and I can hear in the evenings as the sun starts to set the birds
Uh-huh.
tweeting away. And firstly, that's calming on our nervous system. I don't know if you,
Okay.
yeah. So if we go back in time, whenever there was a war or there was conflict, there were, bombs going off anywhere in the world, the
Yeah.
birds will go and hide. You will not hear them. You will
Okay.
not hear them. And the second it's safe again, the birds come out. So it would be like a call
Oh,
to all of us to say it's now safe. You can come out of your houses. So that
wow.
naturally actually resets our nervous system. So I'll pull open the window, listen to the birds yapping away, and I will enjoy my bath. And that to me, that warm water around my skin, what that actually is doing is, as much as it's cleaning me and feels cozy, it's actually physically calming my nervous system.
Wow, that's amazing. It's
So when you're
it's so
back,
like you take it for granted, don't you? It's like, oh, because sometimes a bath can feel like a chore compared to a shower,
a
can't
quick
it?
shower, yes.
Yeah.
But did you hear what I said? A quick shower. Why are we in a rush for everything? Like, for me, slow it down because when we burn out, it's when we've overdone it. When you
Yes.
slow it down, and even if it means you've had a busy day, I have days where I'm very busy. I'm seeing patients, I'm running the business, I'm getting the kids into bed, and
Mhm.
by the time I get into my bath, it'll be way past 8 o'clock. But I will have that soak. You
Yes.
know, I don't care what happens. If it's midnight, I will have that soak
Yeah.
because that's how I then go to bed and I feel calm, I feel relaxed, and I can start the next day afresh.
And that's how you're letting your body know, in a sense, that it's time to wind down. No more work, no more answering emails, and yeah,
It's done, it's my day done. But Michelle, also, it's that release of energy. When we're around people, we're absorbing different energies. When you're already feeling tired or feel or close to burnout,
yeah.
you want to release external energies. And for me, there's different bath time for me works, and breath work is another one. Do
Okay.
you do that? Do you work on that?
No, I've never tried that
Oh,
before.
can I show you one that I
Yeah, of
love?
course.
So, and I feel this is a great one if you're feeling. So you literally put your hands over your chest, and this for me, it kind of connects you to yourself. It's almost like a cuddle at the same time, and
Okay.
you may feel the beats of your heart. What you do with this at the moment is you want to imagine there's a balloon in your tummy, and as you breathe in through your nose, your tummy gets bigger. So imagine that air like just filling up that balloon. So your balloon gets bigger in your tummy. And as you breathe out, that balloon gets smaller. And you just want to take 3 breaths like this. So you can breathe in for a count of 3 and out for a count of 5. And to check if you're doing it right, put one hand over your tummy. And what you'll then notice, because when I had a look at the screen, I noticed this hand was moving quite a bit. You want the hand on the bottom to move more. So as you breathe in, the hand at the bottom over your tummy should be moving out. As you breathe out, it should come back down. So that's another way where I say to people, slow it down. I've got so many little things to tell you. Another one is vagal nerve stimulation. Have you heard of the vagus nerve?
No, I haven't.
Oh, okay. So your vagus nerve is from your brain. It's one of your cranial nerves, and it goes all the way down your chest into your gut. Okay. So it's the gut mind axis. So it's totally connected.
Yeah.
Now, there's a lot of times where people will go through stress and they'll come in and they'll say, Nadia, I'm really stressed and I'm not eating much, but my stomach feels bloated 24/7.
Yes,
What
that's
is that?
totally me. I'm having
Okay.
a scan on Monday. Goodness me.
Right, okay. So let's see if we can change this. So I
Yeah.
was going through this. Again, another article I wrote about in Hello was how to get rid of bloating naturally, because
Okay.
I had a good diet, I was working out, but I had this little belly that just wouldn't shift. And what was going on? What I realized was after the burnout and my stress levels having been quite high, my cortisol levels were high. So cortisol is your stress hormone. It's the hormone that gets released into your body when you go through stress. But what cortisol also does is it builds up fat around your tummy.
Oh.
Right. So how do we drop the cortisol? Right. Vagal nerve stimulation is one of them. Okay. So
Okay.
to stimulate your vagal nerve, I'm going to give you 3 things to do. Okay.
Yeah.
First one you could do is gargling. You can gargle at the end of the day. So brush your teeth and at the end, bit of gargling. People say, what should I gargle with? I'm like, if you're using Listerine, fair enough. I tend to do warm water with salt and I give it a stir, and it's antiviral and antibacterial, and I chug it back and gargle, gargle, gargle for as long as I can. As you're gargling, that starts to stimulate your vagus nerve,
Okay.
and it'll actually, without you even having to do the other bits, you'll feel more relaxed before going to bed. Some people,
Amazing.
they say, I don't have time to gargle, I forget. Hum. I remember the first time I was going on TV. I was like, oh my God, it's live TV. Ah! And I went into the washrooms and I just went in and I just hummed. I was just like, and I
Oh.
was literally doing that. And I just felt this sense of calm. And it was at the back of my throat when I felt all the humming. It went through to my vagus nerve and it just calmed me down. It was instant. So gargling can be one. Humming can be another. And the other one, again, listening to the sound of birds, getting out into nature, looking at the colors, that helps to calm your vagus nerve.
Amazing. You wouldn't think that those simple things can make a difference. It's so interesting that we should have this conversation because literally my I had some blood tests done before I'm getting the scan done and my cortisol level was raised. You're a doctor.
So now you're going to gargle, you're going to
Yeah.
do all these little bits, drop the cortisol levels. The other one I really loved was rebounding. So I don't know if you have a
Okay.
rebounder, jumping on the rebounder, or if your kids have got a trampoline, jump on that. That is so good. I kind of wake up my lymph nodes first, and then I jump on the trampoline and I'll bounce around. If you don't have a trampoline, a few jumping jacks, skipping, that also does the trick.
Or jump on the sofa if you've
Or
got
jump
the
on the bed, have fun with it.
So, Nadia, how do you think, obviously, because a lot of people listening, and you and I are female founders, and we run our businesses and have so much else to do, how can we build in those pockets of time when we don't believe that we have time anyway?
So my biggest one is my bath time. I
Yeah.
need to take a bath. I need to shower. I need to clean myself. So my bath time has become my ritual. As I
Okay.
said, I get the candles in, I get the salts in, I get my senses awakened. So the candles help with my eyes, the flame. I get some lavender oil in. That helps with my sense of smell. The water is the touch. I play some music sometimes, or I listen to the birds. That's my hearing. And then for my sight is the looking around.
Okay.
Um, the only one that's missing is taste, but I don't plan to take any food into the bath because knowing my luck, I'll drop it on myself. So it's really about having rituals that you can set that are part of your life. For some people, they're not fans of taking baths. So I'll say, well, hey, get some walking in, get some movement in, because movement is
Yeah.
really important. If that means you get off a stop earlier before you get to work, or rather than if you're driving in, park a bit further just so you can walk. Having movement through the day is vital. If you're someone who's working from home, getting off that seat every 20 minutes. Research shows you need to be off your chair every 20 minutes or shuffling. You may notice I've shuffled quite a bit during this podcast. So it is really important to move because a
Yeah.
posture that's dynamic is the best posture. So you want to keep moving and getting up, popping the kettle on, refilling your water bottle, adding bits of movement, times when you could just, okay, I've got 30 seconds, I'm feeling a bit stressed, I need to breathe. And if there's kids running around, if there's loads of people around you, go into the toilet, lock the door, take a few deep breaths. Even if it means you breathe in and you sigh as you breathe out, do it.
Yeah. So it's almost like creating those non-negotiables. So
Yes,
I do say to a lot of my clients who are feeling overwhelmed, especially with the level of work that they have going on, I say to them, if we book a meeting with each other, we wouldn't not turn up. So
exactly.
why aren't you carving that time in your own diary and being just as accountable to yourself as you would to other people?
I
You
love
deserve
that.
that time.
It's brilliant. And I think that's great what you're saying because it is that scheduling time. I mean,
Yes.
I find for me, I can't get much done in the mornings because even if I set my alarm 2 hours before it's supposed to go, the second I creep down the stairs, one of my kids will wake up and
Yeah.
say, Mummy, is it time to wake up? And that's me done. So I'd
Yeah.
rather wake up at the normal time with them, but it normally means my evenings are when I then slow it all down. Unless
Yes.
I say to the kids, okay, it's the weekend, let's all get out and go to the park for a walk. So
Yeah.
I feel it's really about getting that alone time for yourself. Sometimes it's silence. It's
Yeah.
having that silence because being founders, being mums, we are busy,
Yeah.
right? We're always having people coming asking for the next thing that they need to do. We're trying to brainstorm. Sometimes it's the silence. And that could mean just going out in your garden if you have one, or just even opening the window and standing by it to listen to what's going on outside, especially if you are lucky enough to be around nature, to listen
Yeah.
to the sound of the trees or the birds tweeting. So, it's taking on what we have naturally to allow us to slow it down because that's one of the things I think we don't do enough of.
Definitely. And that's one of the things that often leads to burnout. It's almost like welcoming the silence, welcoming your own time, because if you don't, then it will force you to stop and you will have to face that at some point anyway. So build it in as a positive part of your day.
Absolutely. And as you said, it's scheduling it in. If
Yeah.
if it's not a routine yet, once you schedule it in regularly, it becomes part of your life.
Yes. Definitely. Like I say to my clients, like any other meeting, you wouldn't for 1 second not turn up for it. So even if it's once a week to start off with, everybody has, no matter how busy you are, everybody has 10 minutes a week that they can put to one side. Like you said, either set your
100%.
alarm earlier, set it later, go to bed 10 minutes later, and just have that time for you. It's so vital.
So vital. And Michelle, your meeting with yourself is the
Mhm.
most important meeting you're going to have because if you don't have that meeting with yourself, what do you have to give to others? We are
Exactly.
running on empty. We need to reconnect so we can then give.
Definitely. And I think appreciating the fact that we deserve it, I think that's a big mindset challenge for us a lot of the time, isn't it? Believing that we are worthy. I'm shuffling again. I'm so aware of this now.
But worthy and allowed. We are allowed to look after ourselves. Being business women, founders, we want to get everything right, but
Yes.
we need to take that time for us
Mhm.
where we also feel loved and cared for so we can then put our love and care into our next project.
100%, definitely. Nadia, you talk a lot about the concept of emotional posture. I absolutely love that. Could you explain to us a little bit about kind of how you spot people's emotions through their posture?
So a lot of times, I mean, if let's forget even me being an osteopath, I think as people, when we see someone sitting upright, we see their shoulders back. They look more approachable, right? You can make eye contact now. There's an elegance, there's a confidence, as opposed to someone who's here looking down. You're not going to connect with
Gosh,
the
what a
world much,
difference.
right? And you won't connect with the world as much, and the
Mhm.
world won't connect with you. So one of the things I say to people is really being aware of how you are and how you're feeling within your body. There are some people that
Yes.
may have ailments like scoliosis, arthritis that has left their spine in that way, but there are things that we can do together to help lift. Now, with regards to what you mentioned, emotions, I feel it more as with touch as opposed to
Okay.
just the visuals. So when people are holding emotions and I start treating almost immediately, when people are holding it in their hips, and I'll start treating men and women, and I'll say, let's talk. What's going on? Why has there? Let's talk a bit more. And at that point, it's almost like as you start treating, the body starts releasing, and people
Wow.
start, you know, certain. I won't be able to say exactly what, but certain things may have happened in their past. A lot of people, when they are stressed or they are, I find a lot of men, they'll hold a lot of tension in their hips, and because of there's that role of expectation, the provider, the support, the strength. Um, and they will hold a lot in their hips. So when you start releasing that, tears can be shed sometimes, and they'll say, "Oh my God, I'm so sorry, it doesn't hurt. I don't know why I'm feeling emotional," and I'll ask them to breathe their way out of it. A lot of There was a story which I can share because this patient quite happily allows me to share this. I was treating her in her mouth. She was very stuck in her jaw, so when I get her to open her mouth, she couldn't open it. She'd be like, "Her," as opposed to her.
Oh,
All right. So when I got into her mouth and started releasing the muscles, she tears started dropping down, and I released and I said, "Are you okay?" She said, "No, continue." I continued, and the muscle started off gripping onto me and it just let go.
wow.
And when it released, she said, "I've been holding my jaw." She'd come out of a horrible relationship, and she said, whenever her ex-partner would shout at her, she
Hmm.
would clench her teeth not to shout back because they had a child together. So she said, she would hold back. So she'd held all those emotions of all those things that she wanted to say, but she wouldn't say it. So as I went in there, it all came to the surface. And
Wow.
then she finally let go. And she was able to move her mouth freely. So it was
Oh,
amazing how the body heals. But we can suppress. I mean, I don't know if you've read The Body Keeps the Score. We do hold on
no.
to a lot of past emotions, and we can hold it in different parts of our body.
Mhm.
Some people, they will hold it in their legs because they don't know when to take the next step forward. There's fear. Some people
Wow.
will hold it in their arms. Some people will hold it in their chest. So it's different emotions are held in different parts of the body. And I think in general, when you are going through trauma or
Yeah.
stress or burnout, please get some hands-on work. It is,
Okay.
it isn't, there is research and science behind it to show as you are releasing muscles, the nervous systems are being taken from a state of fight or flight to a
Yeah,
state of calm. So having
definitely.
that tool when you're going through burnout or stress or anxiety can be really helpful.
Wow. That is incredible.
It's interesting, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely.
Because sometimes, lots of people think, oh, I don't want to have a bath. Oh, that's such a luxury. Oh, going for a massage, that's for my birthday treat. But
Yeah.
actually, we through touch we can heal. Through touch we love. Through touch, it's such an intimate connection.
Yeah.
um, but when you find a practitioner that can allow you to release any of your emotions as well as your physical tension, your body then can go into another state, but also your mind feels a lot clearer. You
Yeah.
know the feeling after you've had a massage, you just feel like, oh, someone's just taken the weight off my shoulders.
I've never actually had one, to be honest.
I had a feeling you were going to say that.
Did you?
How did I know you were going to say that?
I
Well,
don't know the thought of someone with their hand. In fact, no, that's a lie. I had, after my accident, I had like physiotherapy. So I had a little bit like on my back. So I guess
so you've
that's a
had
massage.
hands-on, but we need to get you to back to well-being to actually
Yeah.
experience a releasing massage. I'd love to
Mm.
invite you.
Ah, that'd be amazing.
Love to. But I feel in general, it's really, allowing our bodies to release.
Yeah, definitely. So how do you approach then, Nadia? Clients in a sense of, I myself, I live with a condition called functional neurological disorder, and I have my body, as a result of the things that are happening in my mind, my body has a physical reaction. How do you, what is the first thing that you have to deal with when you have clients come to you when their body is essentially speaking for them?
At that point, I mean, so do you mean before the problem has happened or prior?
Like after, basically they have, I don't know, they've got like a trauma in their body. How do you know where to start in terms of addressing those things? Do you have to tell them, well, actually, I feel like this is what it's going to be, like the lady with her jaw, or do you do your physical work and then speak about the mental health stuff afterwards?
That's actually a great question, Michelle. I feel it's very individual
Okay.
to the patient, very individual to how well they know me. A lot of times, the moment the treatment starts, it's like it's magical in the fact that it's I'm allowed to help them release their tensions.
Yeah.
A lot of times as I'm feeling, I'll be talking to them saying, okay, so there's something going on here. What, and I will know whether it's new or whether it's chronic.
Okay.
And, as they start talking about it, we start to release. And it's literally like, we're going through all the energies to release anything that they no longer want to store. A lot of times it could just be areas that have been holding on because of tension and stress.
Yeah.
But there's no one format. It's so personal with each
Yeah.
patient.
And tailored, I guess, to,
So, yeah.
have you ever had anybody who, you know, obviously from your experience, you know that something is going on and that's why they're holding it in that particular place? Have you ever had somebody that has not wanted to explore that afterwards?
Yes,
Oh, okay.
yes. And I feel everyone is in a different stage. Some people are very open to wanting to know what's going on. There's other people that are still very suppressed and
Yeah.
they're very numb from what may have happened or is still happening. They're not ready to take the next step. Some people just don't want to know. You could say, oh, by the way, what's going on here? And they can get quite offended. Or what are you trying
Okay.
to say? Or what's wrong with my neck? And my neck doesn't hurt and it feels fine. So that's when okay, back off, because normally within a couple of months I'll hear from them and say, by the way, you said you noticed this. I've now noticed I can't move my neck, So um, I can spot things in people. A lot of times, how when people are talking to me, I could sometimes just be at the bus stop or at the train station, and I watch people as they're walking, and
Wow.
yeah, and you could see from how people are carrying themselves where their aches and pains are in their body. So very sometimes I'm like, oh God, your knee must be really bad, or oh your hip, So those
Like a
things
little X-ray machine, aren't you?
it's quite fun. I think most osteopaths and physios and manual practitioners do
Yeah.
experience this, but I think more so when it comes to where they're holding areas. There are times that people are open, and there are times people just don't want to know because they are on that verge of on that hamster wheel, and they feel like, don't tell me because I cannot afford to come off this because I
Yeah.
have to do this to keep it going. And normally when it's when the burnout happens, I tend to be the first call.
Wow.
So yeah,
Definitely.
it's interesting.
Yeah, very interesting, especially that they would see it as a physical issue after it's presented as a mental one at the same time.
Yeah.
What's actually really interesting is when I was younger, I used to have a lot of issues and I felt like it was here in my throat. But it turns out that I was quite badly bullied at school. But once I had this, I actually had like this chakra cleansing or whatever it's called. And once that was done, I felt like I could have my voice back again. And I think something from childhood like that kind of sits there. It's almost like I was afraid to say something, I was afraid to speak, and it physically manifested itself in my body, which I bet you see all the time, like the lady with the
I,
jaw and
I mean, firstly, with the bullying thing, it's very similar to when you're having to suppress your voice. So it's
yes.
clenching, isn't it? I remember I was in a relationship which wasn't very healthy for me, and I was suppressing, and I from nowhere had tonsillitis. I mean,
Oh,
why has tonsillitis come up all of a sudden? I was like, later in life, it was recurring. It was recurrent tonsillitis, and I would at night kind of massage through my glands, and I would just try and get everything to release and heal, and it would be better, but it just wouldn't go. And it was
yeah.
only when that relationship ran through its course, came to an end, I've never had it again. And I
Yeah.
had never had my tonsils removed. They're still in there and intact, thank the Lord. So there are things that we do to ourselves
Yes.
from our life situations, and this is where my strength here was I was able to do work on myself. But
Hmm.
I say to others, please do go to someone that comes recommended to help you release any stress that you're holding onto your body, because especially when it comes
Hmm.
to stress and burnout and anxiety, we hold on. There's a lot of tension. We clench. Shoulders
Hmm.
end up being worn as our earrings. Our arms end up feeling tight. When you go for a massage, it's like everything hurts. Why?
It
Right?
can be pretty painful, can't it? It's like, ow.
Exactly. And that's all that suppression sometimes. So I think it's really about working with your body to release anything, working with your breath to connect with yourselves, and
Yeah.
just making sure you're not constantly on that hamster wheel. Go on it, have a little jog, jump off.
Give yourself permission to jump off as well.
Exactly.
That's the thing. So,
I love that.
d I bet it was so difficult for you, Nadia, having told other people to, you have to do X, Y, and Z, but then suffering from burnout yourself. Is there, I know
It
that
was,
you have
yeah.
your rituals, but do you have any particular exercises that you do that, help keep you grounded and stress-free?
So for me, when it first happened, as I said, it was like the walk of shame. I was like, oh God, here I am telling people what to do, and I am here. How did that happen? It's like, so my when it comes to movement, my job means I'm moving all the time.
Okay.
Um, I I do. I like to move, even if I'm sitting. So even in things like just twisting out the chair, I will do things like twists. I will. I sometimes what I'll do is I'll just do things like just like rub my hands if I'm feeling
Oh,
a bit, just to get the energy going, and I'll just start to do things like that just to kind of release any energy if I'm feeling a bit stressed. But generally, when it comes to movement, I will try to walk every day. I get some
yes.
movement in every day. I get fresh air every day, even if it means that I'm just opening my door and standing in the garden and walking on my grass.
Yeah.
Because the grass, the soil helps to um, reconnect with your electrons and rebalance. So standing
Wow.
barefoot on grass and soil is so healing, it's so therapeutic. So barefoot walking is a really important one for me. And sunsets, I don't always make it for the sunrises, but sunsets, just looking at it, through the window, I open the window, I get my girls to watch that. So when they see sunsets, I'm, mummy, sun setting. So we
Uh,
get to watch those together. So it's little things that I'm trying to imprint in them from a young age for
yeah.
them to actually appreciate as they get older.
Oh, that's so cute. So you've been on, obviously you touched upon the fact that you've been on this morning.
Yeah,
Um, what what would you say is the most common question you get asked from the public? Is there a certain question that keeps coming up all the
there is
time?
two. Back
Okay.
pain. Back pain is one of the biggest ones, because I think it's this. When I last checked stats, I think it's one of the most common reasons people take time off from work.
Right.
Yes, and tech neck. Tech neck. That's one which is more, it's a newer one. So 23 years ago, I'd never heard of tech neck. Today, tech neck is a thing because
Wow.
we're all spending so long scrolling, and the
Mhm.
scrolling happens here as opposed to here. So I
Yeah.
say to people, lift up your screens, keep it at eye level. Your head weighs approximately 5 kilos. It balances on these little
Wow.
vertebrae, right? A bit like a fishing rod. Now, if
Okay.
the head is tilted down for long periods, we can strain the muscles in our neck. Our vertebrae then start to sit in that position, giving the rounding. So
Gosh.
trying to add little lifts, um, just if you're on your phone for anything more than a few seconds, like even a few more minutes, lift it. If you're going to read on your Kindle, lift it. If you're doing it in bed and you're like, I can't hold it, my arms feel weak, bundle up some pillows on your lap, rest your elbows there, and
Smart.
read your Kindle. Same with your books. If you're reading a book, don't have it looking down at night, lift the book.
Yeah, definitely. So what would be the answer that you would give to the issue of back pain being like obviously one of the biggest issues at the moment?
My biggest thing is movement. Research shows you need to get off your seat every 20 minutes. So if you're working from home, if you're working at the office, you want to get off that seat and move around, decompress your spine. Okay. And that for some people can mean hanging off the edge of a door frame. For others, it can mean just swinging your body around. Other people, it can mean lying on the floor doing some knee hugs. So whatever suits you, walk around for even if it's 30 seconds. But getting off every 20 minutes for even 30 seconds makes a difference as opposed to sitting continuously for hours on end.
Yeah. And it's like you say, it's with everything, it's about building those into habits. And
Exactly.
the more that they become habits, the less of a chore it's going to be, isn't
And then it becomes part of your life as
it?
opposed to a chore. It becomes just the way you wake up and brush your teeth is the same way you're going to move your body.
Yeah.
So it becomes a habit, a good one.
Yes, exactly. A positive one for us. So if I was to ask you, Nadia, what does total well-being mean to you?
To me, it's a connection and it's a connection between your mind and your body and your energy. So to me, it's making sure that the three are working together in balance and in equilibrium. When you're overdoing one thing, the rest then get affected. So when your mind is on overdrive, it affects your body. When your body is on overdrive, it affects your mind. So making sure there's a good balance between the two, and making sure you're nourishing each part. So with energy work, I talk a lot about even, meditation, people that pray. If it means walking through the park, walk through the park. For me, one of my biggest ones is going for a walk through the park, no sunglasses, and just looking around and listening to birds, listening to the dog bark, being connected. And that brings you in your place where everything else can connect.
Wow. You've done so many amazing things in your journey so far as a business owner and an osteopath. What
Thank you.
if I could wave a magic wand and be like, okay, what is the big goal? What would you say that is?
I think it would be, oh God, I have so many. Um, I think it would be writing a book.
Amazing.
Yes.
What's holding you back?
It has been time, but
Okay,
I think now that I've put it out there, watch this space.
definitely. Oh my God, I'm literally buying it straight away.
I'll be like, Michelle, have you bought it yet? I'll send you one. There we go.
Oh,
But
right.
I
So
need to
you've
write
got
it
to. You've
first.
got to now. You've got to get it. Do you know what, Nadia? I had always wanted to write a book for years and years and years, and
Let's do it together.
I had a spare month after I left like one position and went into another, and I wrote it within a month, and it is now ready to go. And I tell you something, if I didn't start, I wouldn't have done it at all. I think after your bath tonight, just do like some buzzwords, write
Okay,
down kind of topics that you want to start with. And honestly, you will be so surprised at how quickly it comes.
fine.
Because
I don't know how you did it in a month, but we're going to talk after this podcast.
yes, definitely. But I think it's just the getting started, because it
Okay.
seems like such a huge
Yes.
thing. I've got my mentor head on now, but you have proven that you can do these incredible things. So why not start the book?
Yeah.
Even if you just write a few words and even a structure or a formation, however you want to, that will be your first step, and then you'll see it just
Right.
started coming
I think
alive.
I'm going to get onto it. So
Please,
yes. Yes.
exciting.
Watch this space. Honestly, Michelle, I'm going to do it now.
Amazing. It's honestly, it's been an absolute pleasure to chat to you,
It's been
Nadia.
fun. I mean, I cannot believe that we've only just met via. I could
An
talk to you
hour
for
ago.
hours. I love it. I love it. And you're so easy to speak to, Michelle. Like you're so, you could like just speaking to you, I can see how passionate you are about this and how much you want to help people. And I think you're just such a breath of fresh air to us female
Oh,
founders. And you've done such amazing things with yourself. So you're such an inspiration in yourself.
oh
So
my God. I'll
uh,
pay you later.
but thank you for having me. Honestly, it's been such a great talk. And thank you for being so authentic and transparent. I really appreciate that.
Oh, right back at you, honestly. Just before we go, if you could just tell everybody, whereabouts they can find you, where's the best place?
As in, are we talking social media? If you're on social media, I would say jump on Instagram. I'm
Yeah.
quite active on there. I'm down as Nadia, the osteopath. Michelle, we must connect if we haven't already. We haven't, have
Yes.
we? We're going to connect. So it's Nadia, the osteopath. You can catch me on my website, www.nadiatheosteopath.com,
Amazing.
or my column. So if you're Hello Readers, I'm on there every 2 weeks, and it's Wellbeing with Nadia.
Incredible. Brilliant. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you.